Hello there. If you love a thrift haul, whether that be from the charity shop, a car boot sale, or even an English country village fete, this is the video for you. Hello there, I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. I've got a really huge thrifting haul to share with you today. So it is the season for car boot sales. The weather is fine and looking to be good for the next few weeks or so. So over the course of a couple of weekends, I went to a really big car boot fair, a really good car boot fair, a village fete in a little English village near me, and I have been to the charity shop. So I hope you'll join me as I share what I found and how I've increased my little flower arranging collection of paraphernalia. If you watch on to the end of the video, I've actually got some fresh flowers, so I thought, why not christen my containers and do some arrangements with them. And I've got to check as well whether all my vases are watertight. That is the big question when you're buying vintage vases. And before we get started, why don't you have a guess in the comments what my total spend was across the whole thrift haul? So shall we ease ourselves in gently with the first car boot? So looking down at my pile here, I didn't actually buy much at the first car boot, and I'm wondering now whether I've perhaps tucked some things away and I've forgotten about them. It was a few weeks ago. So this is a car boot fair, which is about a 20-minute drive from my house. It's a very civilised start. So as a buyer, you can arrive any time between 9:30 or a little bit before 9:30 and about 12, pack away about 12. And it's very well organised because you drive up to the field, you have to pay 50p to park your car, you park your car and then you get corralled. If you arrive earlier than 9:30, you are sectioned off in a little bit of an area, and then I guess to create a little bit of theatre, there is a whistle that blows, and then at 9:30 the little rope barrier drops and you can go out onto the main field. Normally I would guess there may well be 100 stalls, and over the course of the morning you will see so many cars parked in the car park. So at 50p a car, they must be having quite a good income, plus of course the pitch fee from each of the sellers. So although I didn't buy very much, it was a very nice sort of introduction to the car booting season. So what I did come away with was this little pot made by Masons. Red and white transferware in the willow pattern, a ginger jar. It would have originally have had a little lid, and I spotted something similar outside one of the antique stores in town in one of their rummage boxes, and that didn't have a lid either. But I got a much better deal on this one than buying it in an antique shop. I think I paid 50p, so I'm just going to use that as a little windowsill jam jar kind of vase, somewhere to put all my little offcuts of flowers, and particularly when I have one flower arrangement that's dying and I want to save little bits, they will look great here. And this isn't flower arranging at all. It's a tiny little glass egg cup with a chicken through it, and it's made in France. And again, I think this cost me 50p. I had spotted a set of 4 of these when I went to the charity shop when I was staying in the Cotswolds over the Easter period. I'll leave a link to that video in the show notes under this one. And in fact, if you love thrift hauls, I've got a whole playlist on my thrifting videos. So this reminded me, as so much does, when you go charity shop shopping, car boot sale, it's like walking through a museum of your own life. And what attracted me here was I used to have a little egg cup like this when I was a child, but mine was ceramic and it was yellow, but it was exactly the same style. So I bought it for nostalgia reasons. And that's part of the problem of being a child in a family that's very large, that all the little bits that were very familiar with you have to be cut so many different ways. So I've bought my own little egg cup to remind me of my childhood. And this little frog has made its way into my thrift haul. I know I bought it recently because I've still got the price tag on it, 50p. I just cannot resist. But what I do try and do is don't collect multiples of the same style, so every single one of my flower frogs is slightly different. So this one is quite small, but it has got a little bit of a depth to it, and the holes go right the way through the middle. So that car boot fair was on the Saturday. There was another car boot fair on the Sunday, the following day, and I found the most amazing things there. So locally, this particular car boot fair is held in a very pretty village on their village green, on the cricket pitch actually, and it is known for being sort of quite high quality, and normally there are some quite high quality prices that go with it. But I hit really lucky, and every time I asked the price of anything, it was significantly less than I imagined it was going to be. And at one of the stores I went to, the lady gave me a good deal because I bought so many things from her. So this car boot fair I went to on my own, but I did video the stall and I messaged it to one of my regular thrifting friends, describing where it was, because I knew there were going to be loads of things there that she liked too. So fortunately she was able to find it, and unfortunately she got there in time that everything wasn't sold out. The first thing that caught my eye at this store was this, I'm not going to call it a windowsill vase, I'm going to call it a planter. I can imagine spring flowering bulbs in there. And it was put inside a plastic washing basket crate with another container on top. So I had to crouch down, lift off the first container, and as I was doing that, the lady whose stall it was, she said, "Oh, you can have that for £1." I thought, goodness me, £1. Now, it's a bit more chunkier than I would like a vase to be. So I thought, £1, beggars can't be choosers, so I took it. And this one, when I had turned it over, has got the maker's mark of Arthur Wood. And I do seem to have quite a growing collection of Arthur Wood. So I was very pleased to have that. So as I was waiting for this to be wrapped up, my eye was going all over the store and I spotted so many fabulous things. I then spotted this jug. Now you'll notice that it's priced up at £3. I didn't pay £3 for it. This one says on the back, made in England, and it seems to have a number 4 written in the back. Now I've looked up all the vases I bought from this particular lady and I can't find anything specific about them online, but I am going to say, with my valuer's head on, that I reckon these are all Art Deco style, so I'm dating them to the 1920s and 30s, which means they're coming up to 100 years old. What I particularly like about this jug is that sort of jaunty slant from spout down to the handle, and that will look really great on my windowsill. I'm going to be changing out what's on my kitchen windowsill from the greens that I've been having over the springtime to the blues of summer. Now look at this, isn't that absolutely gorgeous? So this is another Arthur Wood piece. Really love the colour here. It's a soft green with a floral detail on it. It's almost got like a glaucous nature to it. It hasn't got a high shine glaze on it. There's just a tiny little chip on the rim there, but that doesn't bother me at all. And look at the size of this vase. You can see the ridging on it where it's been turned on a potter's wheel. The sort of mottled green, slight yellowing, and that blue, which I reckon that blue is the same colour as the blue of the jug I've just shown you. And on the back it says made in England, and it's got Thorndon written on the bottom. I think it's going to be a real staple piece, a go-to piece when I'm arranging flowers. Really tall and beautifully elegant. Now, one thing you might find when you're buying vintage flower arranging containers is they're not entirely watertight. And I did notice that when I had taken this vase off my mantelpiece to refresh the water and the flowers inside, I was left with a little mouldy residue on the surface of my mantelpiece. Actually, that's not strictly true, because I'd put this on the chopping board that I showed you in my last thrift haul, and there was just one of those sort of water circles at the bottom. So either I've got a slow leak here, or it's just the condensation that seems to attract sometimes at the bottom of your vase. So whenever you're using a modern or a vintage vase, always make sure you put down a mat to protect your prized surfaces. And talking about vases which might leak, I think this is going to be a prime candidate. Do you know the make? I'm sure you do. So this vase is made by Silvac, priced up at £3. Spoiler alert, I didn't pay £3 for it. So this is the yellow hyacinth leaf vase, and the reason I'm slightly worried about this is because it's got some hairline cracks on it. I knew that at the time of buying it, but I thought, who couldn't resist a Silvac vase for less than £3? So what I'm going to do is to test whether it holds water. Now, one of my friends I go thrifting with regularly does this. I've probably told you before, she always carries a little bit of water in her bag, and when she's in doubt as to whether or not her container is watertight, she asks the staff if she could just put a bit of water in. She leaves it on the side where she walks around the rest of the shop, and then she comes back and tests whether it feels wet at the bottom. So do you think it's time for an experiment? Is this container going to be watertight or not? I was trying to be clever there and do it over my head for dramatic effect, but I think me pouring the water into my lap is dramatic enough. Of course, that's not the proper way to test it. What I'm going to do is to put a sheet of kitchen towel across my kitchen window and then pour water into all of my vintage finds, and then come back and see whether the paper is damp or not. And it's no problem if my vases do leak, I just need to know that they leak. So what I would do is to line them with a different container. So in the more cylindrical vases, I may well save my yoghurt pots, the really big family-sized yoghurt pots, and just put that plastic insert into the bottom of the vase, so I know it's going to be watertight, but I can enjoy my thrifted finds. I showed you the flower frog that I bought from the charity shop. I then spotted this flower frog, this hexagonal flower frog, on the same stall, and the lady who was selling them had a whole lot lined up, and I was very restrained and just bought the one that I didn't already have. And she said that she had really enjoyed her collection of flower frogs, or perhaps I should call them glass flower blocks. And if you'd like to find out more about glass flower blocks, I have got a video on that, and I'll make sure I try and remember to leave a link to that in the description underneath the video. But she said that she has hers all lined up in front of a window, so they sort of sparkle because as the sunlight catches them. So this is quite an unusual shape, being hexagonal. It has got little feet on the bottom. It's slightly concave on the underside, and as I turn it over, I can see it's got a series of numbers, which perhaps I ought to have a look online and see whether I can find out a little bit of history. It says R with a small D next to it. Registered, do you think that means? And then the numbers 632588. I really enjoy looking out for these glass flower blocks and seeing all the different shapes and sizes, and I do have them scattered throughout my home, hidden in plain sight, so they're not just cluttering up a cupboard. I've got one on my kitchen windowsill where I keep my bottle brushes, and then I've got another one on my desk. I'm kind of using it as a paperweight, and another one also on my desk which I'm using as a little pen pot. Let me know in the comments what you use your flower blocks for, other than of course for flower arranging. And look, I've got a matching pair. This little egg cup was for sale on the same stall that I bought everything else from, and as the lady was wrapping everything up for me, I said, oh, I've just bought one of those at the car boot fair yesterday, and she said, in which case, take this for free and then you'll have a pair. And the last thing I bought from this particular lady was some magazines. I cannot resist a good quality glossy magazine, particularly the ones that are Christmas themed. So this is a magazine I've never seen before called This England, the Christmas edition, and that was Christmas 2020 when we were in the height of lockdown. And a couple of editions of Country Living, December 22 and January 2023. I've had a quick flick through them, but I thought I'd save those to the autumn months and put them up in my loft with my growing pile of Christmas magazines. I love flicking through them for inspiration. So the last few finds at that particular car boot, the next I found was this little container here. So this was 50, oh, I've just let the cat out of the bag, 50p. Again, I was quite surprised at the price of this, but I thought this looked like a lovely vintage style windowsill vase. I'm wondering actually whether it's a sauce boat. So instead of being a gravy boat that you would pour, whether you would have ladled out a sauce from that. So I'm dating this, I'm guessing, to the 1960s. It's got a series of numbers on the back, 560 dot. Is it SS or 55? I thought this would be a beautiful container that I could use in my Julie and Julia, the flower edict project. I don't know whether you're keeping up to date with my adventures with Julia Clements, but I am trying to work my way through her book called Fun with Flowers, a treatise on the art of flower arrangements. It's a black and white book she wrote in the 50s, and I think there's about 86 flower arrangements, of which I've done about 27. Actually, I did 3 more this morning. Make that 30. And look at these, aren't these fabulous? I've bought myself 3 cotton reels from another lady. So these have got some thread on them. I'm wondering whether it's actually a silk thread. You can see that it's been corded like a piece of rope. So they're not in particularly exciting colours, ranges of brown, but they are rather individual looking cotton reels. And if you follow me on Instagram or even a member of my Facebook group, Flower Start World, you'll find a link to my Instagram account and my Facebook group in the notes underneath the video. You'll have noticed that a while ago when I was crafting with friends, one of my friends showed me how to create little trees out of floristry wire, bullion wire with beads, and then we planted them in cotton reels. So that's what inspired this buy. I thought, oh, that's rather an interesting straight cotton reel if I decide to make some more trees, and if not, I may just tumble them into a bowl to enjoy. Oh, I had a limited amount of time at this car boot fair because I was due somewhere else at about 9:30 in the morning. So I only had about 30 minutes to whiz around. So I didn't really get a chance to have a really detailed look at everything. And in fact, talking about that particular flower club I went to, it was a very interesting workshop on alternative mechanics. So I'm using some of those ideas I was taught to inspire me for my upcoming flower club meetings that I'm hosting here on YouTube. And so at this point, I really should say that why don't you join my YouTube membership group? It's currently £8.99 a month. And the benefit to you is that I bring you a flower arranging class once a month where I'll take you through a project right from the very beginning until the end. It's a great opportunity to chat in the comments with other like-minded people. You also get to see some behind-the-scenes clips, and you get to watch my regular Monday afternoon uploads advert-free. So the last thing I bought at this particular car boot, I was going past the store and this little book caught my eye, Herbaceous Border Flowers by H.H. Thomas. I always love little books. I quite often use them as decorative items around my home, particularly useful to act as risers or little plinths for your containers and your flower arrangements. Your flower arrangements always look best when they've been lifted off your surface a little bit. So that was why I decided to buy this. I like the aged antique look to it. And this belonged to Isabel Davis, and she's dated it March 1930. But what I liked about this book when I flicked through, someone has put little handwritten notes amongst the pages. So this will be a really lovely book, not only to use as a prop with my flower arrangements, but also to have a little bit of a read. I may become a gardener yet. My next little outing was to a village fete, a quintessential English country village fete. You need to have your eye on the ball and keeping up with when all these events take place. If you're not a member of a church community or you don't live in a village, it can be quite hard to track down bric-a-brac sales and fetes and things like that. This particular fete is really popular locally, I think because it's just got such an old-fashioned charm about it. So I drove out with my sister and we had a little bit of an afternoon tea in the marquee and a stroll around the village green. We had a go on the bottle tombola. There was also a wheelbarrow of booze, which was as part of a raffle prize, but we didn't buy tickets for that. So what I've been on the lookout for is some gems and jewels. So overall, with this little set of jewels, I paid £2. So there's this lovely little sort of Parisian scene. That reminds me of the little Limoges dish. Do you remember the thrift haul I showed you when I went to 3 church flower festivals recently? The one where, I think, what did I call it? Twins, towers, murals and more. I'll leave a link to that in the notes underneath this video. So this is a little brooch there, and then there's a little cameo. Nothing here is of any value. You can just tell the metal is really lightweight, but I could try and convince you that I bought a diamond brooch, a diamond encrusted bow, and a little, I think this must be one earring, a sort of mounted earring. It looked quite nice as a ring, wouldn't it? And the reason why I've bought all these little trinkets, the costume jewellery, is I'm going to make a Christmas wreath that is bejewelled. So watch this space. At the moment I've only got 5 pieces, so I'll have to collect some more. Have you seen the video when I took you to the Midsummer Fair at Hull Park? The one with the vintage Rolls Royce parked outside the house and the bright yellow Fiat 500? Well, that was a very hot, sunny day, and the following day I went out with the same friends and we walked to our local farm shop because they were hosting a car boot fair too, and I bought this little metal container. I quite like the patina on it, and a little bit of flower arranging archaeology. There's some green powder left from flower foam. I was rather pleased to buy this book, priced originally at 2 shillings and 6pence. And when you go to a car boot fair, it's always worth not just looking at the surface or what's on the table, but crouching down as well to see what's in the boxes on the floor. And I spotted this book, and as soon as I saw the words handle and bark, I thought, this is going to be some sheet music. And look at these lovely vintage pages. I'm going to cut it up and use it for crafting. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I've got a growing collection of these scientific vessels. And here I found myself a Pyrex 500ml, well, I was going to say round bottom flask. It's not actually, it's got a flat bottom, but the flask is definitely rounded. And I've already used this. Did you see the live video I filmed a few Tuesday afternoons ago? Well, oh, I know what it was. The one, I think I called it flower arranging in extreme heat. This was one of the containers that I used. And the last item that I thrifted, well, I didn't so much thrift it as I got it for free. So I don't know if it's the same near you, but we have loads and loads of community pages on Facebook here, and one of them is a sharing community. So you can ask for things or you post things that you want to get rid of. And I noticed just a few days ago that somebody had posted a photograph of some ceramic plant pots that they wanted to get rid of. And I spotted this little compot in the background. So I was lucky enough to win it. To do is scrunch up some chicken wire inside and then make a really informal arrangement of flowers, either to put on my patio table or to enjoy on the breakfast table. So I've washed my blue vase, I have scrunched up some chicken wire to put in the top and filled my jug with water, and in front of me I have an array of flowers which are left over. Some of them are from my flower club, some of them are from my latest Julie and Julia project, the one where I did the big mixed vase, and some others are a mix of flowers from my Freddy's Flowers delivery this week and my Freddy's Flowers delivery from last week. So rather than keeping them in vases and buckets, sort of waiting and doing nothing in my workshop, I thought it would be quite nice to use my thrifted finds and actually use my flowers. I always like to start off with a little bit of greenery first, so I'm going to take apart this arrangement here. I've already taken the flowers out of it, and everything else is resting in the flower frog. I like to start with something quite bushy first. Gives me a bit of oomph and starts the arrangement off. Recut the stems and slide them into the vase. So I've got some agapanthus, the whites of Sweet William and the Ami Major, a very short sprig of Alstroemeria, and some longer stems of Solidago. Put my agapanthus down really short into my container. They're quite a large flower, so I want to make sure I've got room for them. I'm very careful with my Alstroemeria. Don't want to knock off any of the blooms. So some of my Solidago is a little bit old, so any of the leaves that are starting to yellow, I'm going to gently remove them. A jaunty angle, mirroring that diagonal slope from spout to handle, and then filling in with a bit of white. A summer day in a vase. I'm going to use my little footed container next, and the mechanics here are a pin holder set right down in the middle and then a cage of chicken over the top. Just add water. Green up. So I've got a stem here of pistache, which is quite often found in supermarket bunches. So with a single stem that is really bushy, that will help cover up my mechanics straight away. As we've got some jaunty curves, I might use some of the miniature, or I think it might be called bridal gladioli. They've got a lovely curve to them. See if I can get an upward sweep with these two. Can you see that curve now? A single carnation right in the centre. Keeping to the pinks and purples here, I've got some of the button chrysanthemums, and also one of my lilies is just beginning to open up. It's amazing how many flowers you can get. Quite a small container. Looking a bit crowded in there, so I might just trim out a couple of those flower stems. There, arrangement number 2, the heat of summer. So here's my finished arrangement in my blue jug. I kept my colours to blues, yellows and whites to really dig into that sunshine and blue skies vibe of the summertime. I've got 3 agapanthus, 2 stems of the yellow Solidago, a single stem of Alstroemeria, 2 stems of Sweet William, and some of the Ami Major, which just gives a little bit of natural movement. And it was all pink in my compote. Again, a bit of a pick and mix of my leftover flowers, a single chrysanthemum. I think it was 3 stems of the a single carnation, 3 stems of chrysanthemum, a very short stem of lily where you can hardly see the fully open flower, but I just love the silhouette that the buds create. And then with the upward sweep, it was the seed pods of the garlic mustard, the wild garlic mustard, and then the stems are the very delicate bridal bouquet. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. Let me know in the comments which was your favourite of my thrifted finds, and don't forget to like this video and share it with a like-minded friend. And if you love these kinds of videos, please do think about buying me a coffee, or better still, why don't you join my YouTube membership group? I'll leave the link to both of those things in the description underneath this video. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you again next time.